If you start anything, just mentally prepare yourself and know, hey, success isn't overnight. It's not a Cinderella story immediately, you know, when you first start. Some people are blessed to have that experience, but it requires a lot of sweat equity and it requires a lot of grinding. As much as that term is overused, it's definitely something that you need to plan on. But you will look back on that experience so grateful and remember those moments when you illegally Airbnb'd your apartment to make rent so that you could fund your passion, right?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Andrew Ramon Show. I am pumped about this episode, so you joined in for the right time. Today, we continue our success stories, where I interview individuals who are finding success in their area and they're making a difference. Today, I got the privilege to interview a really good friend of mine, also an independent video creator, Brady Clayton, who has seen a lot of success in his job, which is creating brand content for influencers and companies like Dr. Pepper, Marriott, Instagram, Airbnb, worked with Olympic gold medalists. I mean, the list goes on, and it is truly a pleasure to have him on. So Brady, welcome to the show.
Dude, thank you so much, man, for having me on. You are such an amazing friend, guys. Andrew's been a longtime friend of mine for so long, and it's so cool to be able to have the honor to go on your show and chat all things video.
Man, that's awesome, which is going to be a great conversation. I mean, I'm going to learn a lot because I'm like, well, I don't know too many of these sub videos. I just kind of press record and that's about it. But Brady, tell us a little bit about yourself for those that don't know you and about what you do.
Yeah, guys. Well, and this sounds like a middle school introduction here. I'm like 27 years old, Texas born and raised, married to my beautiful wife, Quinn. We've been married for about 5 years now. We've got a 2.5-year-old, Asher, and we've got one on the way. We just found out yesterday that it's a boy. So we've got another boy on the way.
Congratulations.
So dad of 2 sons. Thanks, man. So like Andrew mentioned, I'm a professional videographer. I've been doing that now for about 5 years. So my specialty is telling a company's story or an influencer story, a brand creator's, a content creator's individual personal brand story, generally in about 2 minutes or less. Very high-packed, engaging, fast-paced brand videos that are used to launch a product, engage with followers, spread brand awareness. So I've been doing that for about 5 years now and have absolutely fallen in love with it. And my journey through that, which I'm sure we'll get into, has just been wild and crazy. And yeah, it's just been a ton of fun. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
Man, that's awesome. And at the end, we'll definitely give an opportunity for everyone to know how to follow you and everything. Because honestly, your content is top notch, super high quality. It's amazing. It's engaging. I would love for people to go check that out. And so I am curious to know, you mentioned a little bit about your story and we'll get into it in more detail.
Yeah.
But I always like, and people who have watched the success stories, they always know what question's coming up. It is the question of whether you ever saw yourself being in the position that you are today when you were younger. And I say younger because you're still young. Don't age yourself too much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I need people like you in my life more often to just, remind me how young I am. So it was really interesting. So growing up, I was obsessed with video making, right? And this was back in the time when like you had like little VHS recorder camcorders thing where you'd stick the tape in it. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
And so at that time, like you couldn't even add music because like there wasn't any editing. So I'd literally hold around like a battery powered CD player and hold it up to the camera so that it could like get the audio. So I was obsessed with making fun videos with my siblings from like the age of 8, right? But back then I actually never saw myself doing it full time, even though I wanted to so bad, because getting into traditional filmmaking back then was like really, really difficult, right? Like being a filmmaker in Hollywood, like you had to know the right people, pull the right strings, blah, blah, blah. But that was before social media existed. And that was also before people like you and me had access to cool, affordable equipment where people could have like really high quality cameras and editing platforms that would be able to transform their own brand. So I didn't see myself going into video professionally because back then in like the early 2000s, there literally was just not an opportunity unless you worked really hard to get into traditional Hollywood. But obviously, as we know, that changed. Social media came about, the movement of people being able to share their story on their own platforms took off. And then that's kind of where the floodgates opened up, and I realized, oh, wow, maybe I could actually travel back to doing what I love as a kid. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's incredible. And I think something that really sets you apart is that you've been able to make what you said was your passion since you were very little. I mean, I don't know you guys, but especially in my family, we used to record with that recorder, like little Star Wars figures. And we used to wrap around the little Star Wars figures with little strings so we could move them around. And yeah, I mean, maybe this is taking us way back for some of our audience, but I think some of our audience will be able to relate with us in that. But I think something that's, like I mentioned, unique is that you've been able to take what was your passion and what is your passion and actually make it your job. You know, not just only make it profitable, but make it something that you can do full time. And I think that's something unique. And a lot of people like myself are interested in, what has been like a key factor in turning your passion into your job?
Yeah, totally. This is a big one, and it might sound a little cliche, but it was taking risk. I actually thought that I was going to go into politics going out of college. I went into the political sphere for 8 months. It was horrible. It was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. I got fired in the process. And I was like, whoa, hold on. This whole trajectory of my life that I thought I was going to take just got shut down in shambles. What am I going to do now? And so I think within every adult, you can look back on your childhood and see what are things that interested me as a kid? What are things that made me come alive? What are things that made me excited about life? And you can trace that back to your interests now as an adult. And so I look back at the thing that made me passionate and excited as a kid, and that was making videos. And so at the age of 22, 23, way late in the game, I was like, you know what? This isn't working out for me, the whole politics thing, the whole traditional 9-to-5 career post-college job. What if I just jumped back into what I loved doing as a kid? And so I quite literally quit my job. Well, to make a real long story short, got fired from that job, worked at a van dealership selling passenger and cargo vans, very sexy, for about 6 months, and then quit that job. And I just jumped into it, man, with a tiny little camera that my wife had brought into the marriage and a tripod. That's it. I had no book of business. I had no backup clients. I was filming literally anything and everything for $300 a pop, $500 a video. I needed to make rent, right? I mean, I jumped into it with literally everything to lose. So you asked the question, what was the thing that really made me switch over to my passion? It was just taking that initial leap. It was just realizing, like, I love this. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm going to give it a shot and I'm going to give it my all. And so it was taking that risk and just taking that jump that really just kind of started the story.
Man, that's crazy that you say that. And I liked how you didn't leave out the non-sexy jobs that you had to take over here. I mean, it's encouraging for anyone listening, because I always say sometimes, like, Brady, your easy answer could have been, I just followed my heart and I just did my passion. And that was it. It was easy. But you're like, no, I got fired. Then I worked here. And then I actually went all into that. And now, fast forward some years, you've been able to be part of some great, amazing projects. I'm curious if you can share a little bit about even behind the scenes, or like what has been one of the most exciting projects that you've been part of.
I mean, okay. So the cool thing about my job and what I love doing is the variety, right? There is so much variety in what I do. So there was a time when I was working with a really big YouTuber, and we would film just like the most crazy stuff. So at one point we went to like a ranch in Texas where you could drive tanks. And so it was a full day of filming, like literally driving on like Soviet war era tanks.
Oh my gosh.
In the middle of a ranch that was full of ostriches. So there would be ostriches chasing your tank as you were driving it through the Texas underbrush. It was like the most random thing ever. So there was that. There was I just wrapped up some work with a child cancer foundation, which was really impactful and really meaningful to be able to give back in that regard. This year I've been able to work with some health and fitness stuff, a really large CBD corporation out of California. It's so hard to answer that question because there's just so many interesting and unique projects that I've been able to put together. But
well, I'm not sure you can top off the tank. being chased by ostriches.
I'm trying to think of like what would be fascinating and interesting for like normal regular people. So that one was
like I can tell you a 9-to-5 job will not take you there. I mean, your goal is being chased by ostriches, guys. Go into videography, and that's your ticket there. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
It was a wild experience. For anyone that is interested, it's called drivetanks.com. It's out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and you can even like shoot authentic flamethrowers and
my gosh,
shoot mortars. It was a pretty wild experience. I happened about 2 years ago or whatever, but it was a blast. It was super fun.
Wow. Like you said, there's so much variety. I mean, you in the same sentence, you went from tanks to CBD to actually helping, giving back, in the children's hospital. So it's just like so much there, but you kind of hinted at this as well, that it's not just fun, it's not just exciting, but it's also kind of fulfilling. I mean, what has been, maybe it's something you just mentioned, but what has been one of your most fulfilling projects?
Yeah, for sure.
After you're done.
Yeah, there's a longtime client that I've had for a couple of years called House of Shine. They're one of my nonprofits that I support. They're in the Grapevine area. And they're actually all about self-betterment and self-improvement. So they're really about showing young kids how to find their passion while they're young so that they can live it out as an adult. And I've been longtime friends with the organization, and I produce monthly content for them. And that's been a really meaningful journey to be a part of, especially to see them grow and to see their mission of allowing, young adults and kids to find their purpose like early on. So that's been a really meaningful and fulfilling project.
Wow, that's incredible, and that's incredible that you have that choice. And also, I mean, I can imagine with so many projects that you're doing, it's also great to see that you're making time for those that, I mean, regardless, if it's that much financially or whatever, but it's impactful to the community. Yeah, and I think it's encouraging for anyone who's just listening right now is, what are you doing right now to give back? What are you doing right now to actually reach out? Now you might say, well, I don't know a nonprofit. Well, get to know a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Actually do the effort, start giving to either nonprofits or hospital, whatever it is that God can use us, because God can use all of us, regardless of whether you have a 9-to-5 job or you're more on your own schedule like Brady is. But something that I wanted to kind of spend a little time and take your time answering this question was the road to success per se, and then it's not necessarily a location, but the kind of the process that you've been taking and making a difference, I'm sure has not always been easy. You kind of started mentioning it. I mean, you went at it with everything and at the same time with nothing at all in your hands. Yeah. Was there ever a time when it was difficult or just tough to even keep moving forward and instead just giving up?
Yes, absolutely, man. Those first that first year of taking that leap, taking that risk, and jumping into video full-fledged, it was so tough. I mean, I remember, God, this is so crazy. I think back on this, but we had a really slow iMac. Or not iMac, it was a MacBook. And I was just like trying to figure out how to edit. By the way, I'm a completely self-taught. I never went to film school. I YouTube tutorialed my way from start to finish through this whole thing, right? So I had no traditional training. So beginning to say like, oh yeah, are you a videographer? You make videos? Like, yeah, no, I totally do that. Yeah, I mean, like I love doing this as a 10-year-old. This is things that I'm not telling people when they say, can you make a video for me? I have like this really crappy MacBook back in my little apartment that I'm still trying to figure out how to edit. I mean, I would accept anything, and then I would figure out on my own and try to make it look as good as possible.
Incredible.
And so my wife's grandmother had this old iMac that she was like, you know what? I'm not using it. Like, I'd love for you to use it so that it could help out your business. That was the biggest gift I'd ever gotten. It was a super old iMac that would help me, speed up the speed of my editing. It was nothing fancy, nothing pretty. And it revolutionized like my workflow. And I was so grateful to have this little iMac that I could work on. But literally month to month, this is so funny because to make our rent, we would literally Airbnb our apartment out on the weekends so that we could make our rent, because money was so tight, right? Like I'm doing real estate videos for $300-$500 a pop, and I'm just like trying to make rent in my head, right? And so it was so funny because originally, like 2 years later, we realized that we were Airbnb our apartment illegally, and it was against the lease. And the people
Am I guilty by association right now? Guys, we're stopping the podcast right now. This is not airing. I'm just kidding.
Well, it was so funny how the apartment complex found out, because the lady comes up to me. She's like, are you doing like a B&B in your apartment? And I was like, bed and breakfast? No, we don't do a bed and breakfast. That's totally not what we do. It's like, okay, well, there's people that have been checking into the leasing office with their luggage, asking where to get into your apartment. Like, the people were literally walking into the leasing office to check into our. But anyway, so I say all of that to say that initially during that first year, literally to make rent, we would Airbnb our apartment out. I would take every side gig, every side job outside of video as well, little gigs to just keep the ball rolling so that I could pour everything that I had into perfecting what I did, getting faster at what I did, slowly upgrading my gear through Facebook Marketplace. I was looking for deals. I was just straight grinding through all of it. Yeah. So it was tough there, man. For the first, I would say a year and a half was like super slim. But that's with everything. That's what with you, for those listening, if you start anything, just mentally prepare yourself and know, hey, success isn't overnight. It's not a Cinderella story immediately. When you first start, some people are blessed to have that experience, but it requires a lot of sweat equity and it requires a lot of grinding. As much as that term is overused, it's definitely something that you need to plan on. But you will look back on that experience so grateful and remember those moments when you illegally Airbnb'd your apartment to make rent so that you could fund your passion, right?
Yes, absolutely. And people are like, oh, so that's what I needed to do. Okay. Now we're just going to get a bunch of emails. Thank you. I was so impacted by Brady's interview. Now I'm making money through Airbnb. I'm just kidding. But that's hilarious little tip. We're going to leave it down here. Don't tell nobody. But we just told you how to make money, okay? Do not say where you learned it. You were self-taught like Brady, okay? Obviously. That's it. One thing that highlights what you were sharing is just your process in saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to say yes to these projects, and I'm going to, in the background, I'm going to teach myself, going to be able to actually produce that. And that makes me think, now that you've gone through the self-taught process, is there anything that you wish, whether in life or in your career, that you wish someone would have told you earlier, or you wish you would have done differently? Yeah,
totally. I'll say two things. Yeah. One, I wish, and there's nothing that I can do about this now, I wish I'd started earlier. I wish I'd realized earlier my passion. Some people don't have the luxury, though, of finding that out at 22. Some people wait until they're 30, 40, 50. Sometimes people go their whole life working a job that they hate without taking the risk and jumping into something that they're passionate, right? So I already wish, looking back, man, I wish I jumped into the boat at 18, 16 and realized this. But such is life, So one is that I wish that I would have taken the risk earlier. The other thing, and the big thing for people that are self-employed, for individual creators who are listening to this right now, is realizing your worth sooner when it comes to pricing your work. There are so many people that have that imposter syndrome that everyone's familiar with, where they think, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe people are going to wake up one day and realize, how am I paying this person this much money to do this thing? Do I really have what it takes? These are mental hurdles that I really had to work on those first few formative years, and in some cases still have to work on now, because I've only done this for 5 years, right? And so it's realizing I am worth this price. I can charge this much. Not being afraid to demand from a financial perspective from your clients what you think that you're worth. And that is
Wow.
the biggest thing that people have the hardest time with when creating something of their own, is truly valuing how much they're charging and how much they're pricing. So that's definitely something that I wish someone had told me a lot earlier. And I was very fortunate to have a lot of friends my age who are already successful in the creative industry at that age, and pushing me along, being like, dude, don't be afraid to charge, what you want to charge, don't be afraid to push further. So that would be my encouragement to people that are in that predicament now, is charge more.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I mean, I really respect that, because you're absolutely right. There's just something, I don't know if it's just something that our culture's believing or people believing, that usually things with technology or a video or like take pictures is usually seen like as a lesser job or easier job.
Totally.
It's just like, hey, how many can you do us a favor? So many things. And then you're just like, yeah, well, all I did was take a couple pictures. It's like, what are you doing, bro? You're a professional photographer. Now charge your worth. Okay. I feel like, like you are Mrs. Incredible with the newspaper, that scene's like, what are you doing? Yeah. That's awesome. I will, send me the invoice for this later. Yeah, we'll talk about that offline. No, that's hilarious. I think that's so true, though, what you shared about knowing your worth earlier and then starting earlier. I mean, maybe you're listening right now. I know I talk to a lot of folks, maybe they're, in the 15, 16, and they have passions right now. Yeah. It's like, hey, be able to structure your time where you can take care of what you need to take care of in that season of life. But at the same time, don't doubt yourself. Like, actually go for it and see if it's something that's going to make a difference and you're going to be able to sustain later on.
Yes.
Now, we've talked a lot about like the video stuff and everything, but I mean, you have a life, you have a wife, you have now 2 children, one on the way. And what has been throughout this whole journey, what has been the most challenging on a personal level with the work that you do?
Oh man, I'll try to keep that one short. I definitely, you mentioned having a wife and 2 kids. The family aspect has definitely changed my work a lot. I love traveling. I'm addicted to traveling. I just love it, love it, love it, love it. When you're in a position where you have a family, traveling gets a little bit more hard, right? Like you're leaving, your best friend with your child for, 3-4 days at a time. That can kind of take a toll. And so that's kind of been interesting to try to navigate, is figuring out, hey, how can I make this where it works for our family, but there might not be a lot of people that listen to this that might be in that situation right now. So I'll definitely say a major struggle that I touched on a little bit earlier is everything that I do, everything that I film is on an online space that is driven by comparison, right? It is so easy to compare your work to the next creator, to doubt your creativity, to doubt your talent, to doubt how good your skills are, because we are driven in a society of comparison, right? And what's also so crazy is my job, my battlefield is people's attention spans. I have to hook people in the first 5 to 10 seconds of my video in everything that I do, right? And so to work and spend days, weeks, hours filming a video that's going to end up on a platform where people just swipe it away in a single flick of their thumb is so tough, dude.
Oh my gosh.
You talk about trying, like you're literally spending your entire livelihood on trying to capture people's attentions. And all they have to do is flip that little left thumb, and that whole weeks, months, and hours of work that you put in that video is gone up further their feed. That's a really tough part as well, is just comparing your work to other people. Finding how much enough is enough, in finding fulfillment in your work, because it's all going on a platform where everything is so temporal. And so that kind of gets into a whole other conversation. I don't know if we want to get into, but that's probably a struggle a lot of videographers have, is you could put so much work and effort into something on a personal side of things. And at the end of the day, people are going to see it once and they might like it. They might comment on it. And there goes all of your effort and all your work on a very temporal platform. So that's just a very real perspective of something that I have struggled with.
Wow. And I think that struggle is, I mean, you deal with it even more because that is the workspace. that you live in. But everyone's got Instagram on their pants. Everybody has a social media platform, so everyone kind of goes and some level struggles with that as well. And I think you nailed it of like what is the source, or what's your root motivation for the content that you create? Whether everyone likes more views, everyone likes that, great, and all those things are important. But at the same time, what is your root? Because if your root is that comparison, if your root is all that, the moment it gets swiped up and like gets 5 views, then your whole world's shattered and you can't move forward. You're paralyzed, which I'm sure we've all dealt with in some way or another. It's like, dang, I was expecting that to go differently with that content. I totally understand that. And now you're on this side. I mean, you've worked with some great projects. You've had a lot of success. Of course, the grind's still real. The work's still real, and everything like that. But one, at least from my perspective, can look at you saying, man, this guy's really being successful. This guy's really making a difference. What are some, and if you can kind of break them down, what are some keys in the success that you've experienced? And then how can young adults now apply those in their lives?
Totally. Well, I'm going to try not to be super cliche by saying what you said earlier, following your heart. So I'm going to really try not to go down that route.
Just rephrase that. Yeah.
Rephrase it. Okay. Heart your follow. All right. That's what I want people to say. No, I mean, I would go back earlier on taking risk, man. Take the freaking risk. Calculated risk. Don't bet the farm. Don't bet your sibling. I mean, just definitely make sure that you're going into something that you feel like you have a little bit of an understanding on. But I would say take the risk, put the work in super, super hard. The other thing that I would just say is just be yourself. God, it sounds a lot like follow your heart, but we're gonna go.
That's okay. That's okay.
I think a lot of people in the comparison network that we have with Instagram and social media is, we look at someone, an influencer, their style, how they're getting so many views, how they're getting so much engagement, and we try to impersonate that style. We try to imitate and copy that. And I would just encourage people, show up as yourself, show up as you. People are going to be drawn to your personality, your style, your work. Don't feel this overarching pressure to try to conform to some mold, even though you might see something as being successful. Don't take notes directly from that. Like, find your own groove, because you will feel so much more fulfillment through that. And you won't feel like you're this constant pressure to perform or to personify an aura or a personality that you are not. And that's definitely a lesson that I've learned going through this is people are drawn to my work, my brand, because they want to work with me. And it's because I'm trying my best to be myself through that. Right. And so, but that's so hard to do in the social sphere that we're surrounded in now, where we have all these personalities that it's like, oh, well, if only I could be like that person, if only I could kind of imitate that person, then I might find some success. So I would definitely say, take the risk, jump in, work really hard. Don't be afraid if it doesn't take off initially, right? Don't be scared if you're not making a lot of money. It's okay. As long as you enjoy what you're doing, like, that's the biggest thing. And then just be yourself.
Yeah. I think that's super important that you mentioned. And I think it connects back to the previous things that you were saying, to, know your worth, charge right and everything like that. Well, Brady, I'm super thankful that you took the time to jump on here. I mean, it's so much on, guys. Really, we could go on for hours joking around. I mean, this is our personalities. But I'm so grateful. I know I learned a lot from here. And Brady, like, how can we follow your content? How can we connect with you?
Totally. Guys, follow me on Instagram at Brady S. Clayton. Shoot me a DM. Would love to chat with you. Shoot me a voice message, DM. Would love to hang out with you in the DMs on Instagram. That's pretty much the predominant way that I communicate on social media. But yeah, it's at Brady S. Clayton. You can check me out there and would love to chat.
That's awesome. Well, there you guys have it. Go follow Brady. We'll put his tag here and everything. Brady, again, thank you so much for your time. And folks, that's another episode of the Success Stories, where I interview folks that are seeing success and making a difference, because so can you. You can see success and make a difference. We'll see you in the next episode of The Andrew Ramon Show.